Hi there, warm welcome. You're watching Blueprint Explosive Exclusive, and I'm Narendra. Today, viewers, we are asking you a simple question. Is President Trump spoiling for a war? Well, let's tell you why. We are going to be laying out the facts for you. It's very simple. The calculation seems to be very precise. Did you know, and here are the facts, did you know that till the Second World War, America used to have a Department of War, but after the World War, it was renamed as the Department of Defense. But now, Donald Trump, well, he is signing an executive order directing the Pentagon and the Defense Department to bring back the name Department of War. Why? Well, his executive order interestingly reads that the name Department of War conveys a much stronger message of readiness and resolve as compared to the Department of Defense, which, as per this executive order, emphasizes only on defense capabilities of America, not about its war preparedness. So I ask you again, is Donald Trump spoiling for a war? Why are we saying this? We'll sample this. Well, today, President Trump has put this out on Truth Social. It had a picture of Prime Minister Modi, Xi Jinping, the President of China, and the President of Russia, Vladimir Putin. This picture is one from Tianjin at the SCO, where the three world leaders met last weekend. What does Donald Trump write? He says, we've lost India and Russia to China. We've lost them to the deepest, darkest China. May they have a long and prosperous future together. This statement is very, very telling. To have Trump come out and said that we have lost India to the darkest China. On what basis is President Trump saying that India and Russia have crossed over to the dark side, which is China? Well, let's get you the devil in the detail. And here it is. You have President Trump who says that we have lost India. But isn't it the same president who said that India is a dead economy? If India is a dead economy, why is he worried that they've lost India? Also, you had the president earlier saying that we have lost Russia. Russia and India have been lost. But isn't he the one who called Putin an absolutely crazy man? He tagged Putin as absolutely crazy, now says he's crossing over to the dark side. President Trump also blamed China, but what he seems to forget, isn't he the one who had imposed 50% tariff on India? Shouldn't India be putting India first? Why should India be putting MAGA first? He also said that it is the darkest China. One thing that he put out in his word, in his post, was darkest China. If China is so dark, if it is indeed the darkest side, why is US put a pause on tariffs on China when it has imposed 50% tariff penalty on India? Well, these are just some of the questions we want you, the viewers, to think of. Because with Trump, it's always the timing. The timing that really holds the key. Remember how he has been spoiling relationships, something that even some of his own senators, party members have been warning him about. That first, he spoiled the relationship of America with India, first by announcing ceasefire before India did during Operation Sindoor. It was all about timing. And now again, this post was put out just seconds before MEA's weekly press briefing. MEA, the External Affairs Ministry of India, was about to have a press briefing. Right ahead of that, he put out this post saying that India has crossed over to the dark side. Now, Trump has been provoking India, but New Delhi has remained dignified in its response. All this while, there's always been a very dignified response. Trump says India is crossing over to the dark side, which is China, but listen in to what our External Affairs Ministry had to say.
Regarding the post, I have no comments to offer on this post at this point. तो इस पे हमारे पास अभी टिप्पणी करने के लिए कुछ नहीं है.
Well, here's how the other two leaders in the Troika have reacted to Trump's constant bullying. And it's important for us to point out, what did Vladimir Putin say just a few days back? Well, there you have it. Vladimir Putin came out openly, told Trump You cannot talk to India and China like that by penalizing them with 50% tariffs. Also, Vladimir Putin has said that the colonial era is over. So get over it. Very hard word. Colonial era is over. You also have President Xi Jinping. What did he say? He said that China isn't intimidated by any bullies. He goes on to say, oppose this confrontation, this Cold War mentality. So all the leaders here have been saying, stop the confrontation, stop the Cold War mentality. This era is over. But very clearly, President Trump still marches on. Let's tell you what exactly has been said in the past.
You have countries like India, almost 1.5 billion people, China, with powerful economies. Just the colonial era is now over. They have to realize that they cannot use this tone in speaking with their partners.
中华民族是不畏强暴、自立自强的伟大民族。当年面对正义与邪恶、光明与黑暗、进步与反动的生死较量，引领过东西交融，推动着人类进步。各国人民自古互通有无，取长补短。
Of course, it doesn't mean that New Delhi will keep accepting this bullying nature and this behavior. When the need really arises, Delhi doesn't shy away from calling out Trump either. Remember, Trump has also unleashed his trade advisor, Peter Navarro, on India, who, without checking any facts, has been making obnoxious statements targeting India, one after the other. So here are a point-by-point rebuttal. Let's tell you exactly why Trump and his camp, especially that of Navarro, why they are wrong. So what Peter Navarro had said, he said that the road to peace runs through New Delhi. He was talking about the Ukraine and Russia war. However, top sources in India have said that this is nothing but scapegoating of India, which is propaganda, it is not policy. Navarro also said that tariffs aren't just about unfair trade. But top sources in India say that it is absolutely incorrect to say that. It is incorrect understanding of what the supply chain really works, how the entire supply chain works. Navarro had also said that we are cutting off India's financial lifeline to Russia. However, top sources in India have said if India stops buying crude oil is going to cross 200 dollar per barrel. 200 dollars per barrel, and that is the price point that India is trying to control right now by buying this Russian oil, which is why it's very significant. And of course, here on Times Now, we have repeatedly discussed as to how India is not indeed the highest buyer of crude oil from Russia. In fact, MEA has also responded to this today. Listen in to what MEA has to say.
पीटर नवारो के कमेंट के बारे में हम लोगों ने कुछ गलत और गुमराह करने वाले कमेंट या स्टेटमेंट श्री नवारो की तरफ से देखा है और साथ ही साथ हम ये कहना चाहते हैं कि ये हमारे लिए अस्वीकारनीय है, इसको हम अस्वीकार करते हैं.
So let me go across to our panelists. Today joining us on the show we have Adele Nazarian. She's a senior fellow at the Gold Institute for International Strategy. She's joining us live from Washington, D.C. She is, of course, pro-Trump in her opinions. Also, we have Major General Sanjay Messon. He's a defense analyst. He's joining us live from India. Let me go across first to Ms. Nazarian. And it's very significant that I ask you this question because many people have been wondering the same. Is President Trump spoiling for a war? Renaming the defense ministry as the war ministry, and now you have saying India and Russia are crossing over to the dark side. Does he want a rerun of war or perhaps Cold War?
Hi, Meghna. No, he does not want war. This is rhetoric that is meant to, again, bring Prime Minister Narendra Modi and India back to the table. I think that this is another brilliant tactic. It's honestly, this isn't just a detente. This is a tactical timeout, that's what I call it. It's the strings of rapprochement. It's a deliberate recalibration, and he's trying to once again rebuild trust, charter a long-term course for the U.S. and India relationship to come back again. He's like, go off like a butterfly, you can flutter off, go with China, go with Russia. At the end of the day, it will benefit India economically, of course, but it's going to end up benefiting America long term, because at the end of the day, India and U.S. relations, the technology sharing, there's so much of the economy together from a economic point of view, from a defense point of view, that this is a temporary reprieve on India's part. And I really think that there's not going to be a war, to answer your question again.
If there's no war, I'm just trying to understand the statement, Ms. Nazarian, that has come out today. If indeed China is the dark side, if Russia is also crossing over, aren't these the very leaders that President Trump himself had met very recently? Has he also crossed over to the dark side, Adele?
All politics, geopolitics is dark. You have to dabble in dark and light in order to be at the top. It's part of the territory, right? That said, I think you can call him a bully, right? That's how the bully pulpit works. And honestly, it's part of his brand, right? It can't be replicated. People have tried and failed, and it isn't going away. I think that this is another attempt to brilliantly, honestly, place them in a different camp, which is what they wanted from the SCO. That's precisely what India, China, Russia, all the members of the SCO wanted. And President Trump is giving them what they wanted, optic-wise.
Well, all the three countries have been part of BRICS as well as SCO. This is not the first time, but Major General Sanjay Mesran, I think you too will appreciate that Ms. Nazarian has been very truthful in her assessment that yes, he is a bully, deal with it. How will India be dealing with it? Is it even fair to India?
Meghna, good evening. Firstly, I think I'll just make few comments. You made a very interesting remark that President Trump, has he also gone onto the dark side or the deeper side? I will say yes. Now, where is he gone? Where is the dark and deeper side? I think today President Trump is aligned totally with Asim Munir, and the darkest, deepest side and the most terrorized, the terrorism state is Pakistan, and he is actually jumped there. Whereas India, China and Russia, and of course also Brazil, we are part of BRICS, and this is a very, very long association.
Yes.
And we are equal partners. None of them is bullying each other. So we are equal partners. And even with the United States, we were strategic partners. President Trump has spoiled this entire relationship. I do not know why. And I think if he just goes back to his campaign and post his election, I think first target was Canada, then was Greenland, then was European Union, then was Gulf of Mexico, then was Brazil, where he has imposed huge tariffs equivalent to India just because he wants to get the earlier President Bolsonaro, no trial should be there. And of course in Asia, I think he's imposed the maximum Trump on India with 50% tariffs. And he's forgotten that today EU is the largest importer of gas from Russia. Number two, even EU is the fifth largest importer of oil from Russia. And why no tariffs have been imposed on them? And in fact, President Trump also threatened recently that he stated to the EU that you need to now impose further tariffs on India. So I think EU is not going to fall in this trap, because India, being a strategic autonomy, we have got excellent working rapport and relationship and partnership with most of the countries of the world, including with China. We have had, I'm not saying that with China we have gone to the darker or deeper side, but including with European countries. So I think this is a temporary phenomena. It is not the United States, it is President Trump. And he is actually thinking that he is leading his country into real estate business, but he is doing the maximum harm. He is the one who is harming relationships. To build relationships takes a lot of time, and you see the...
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. A very relevant... Yes, Adele, you want to come in. It's not about precedent to precedent. It's not even term to term or party to party. These are two nations. And there needs to be continuity when it comes to diplomacy.
I'd love to address the gentleman's remarks regarding Donald Trump going to the dark side. Look, this is not a shift into villainy. It's really a realpolitik maneuver. That's what it is. You know, China is rising. India is stirring. The Middle East is volatile. Pakistan, with all of its obvious issues where it supports terrorism, it is not one of the biggest exporters of terrorism, it's still a geopolitical foothold, and it offers the United States an access point. Of course, temporarily, the caveat is that this approach risks undermining the India-U.S. relationship, which obviously has been having before our eyes, but it will not be a long-term thing. You hit the nail on the head, sir. You said it's a temporary thing. There are geopolitical nuances here that are very complicated, and on the surface it's going to look explosive, but beneath the surface things are going to reset in a very, very smart and I think beneficial way in maybe a few months, maybe a year or two, but they're going to get back to where they're supposed to be, and probably even better.
But Ms. Nazarian, do you think that there is an actual fear, and several of your previous NSAs have been warning President Trump again and again, that you may ruin things for good? Because a lot of these deals, a lot of this pact understanding is going to be there in the long term as well. The alliance between India, Russia and China is getting stronger, and a lot of it has to be because of President Trump and his actions directly.
Well, absolutely. If you look at it, look at the situation in Syria, for example, with Jelani. He was before an Al-Qaeda operative, and now he is, working against. Now the U.S. is working with him to help, smooth, let's say, the situation there. And of course, he's going and carrying out horrific crimes against Druze and other, children. Honestly. So there is obviously always unfortunately a negative side to things. This strategic partnership, or let's say warming towards Pakistan, is going to have its consequences as well. But at the end of the day, this is one administration. There will be another administration coming in, whether it's J.D. Vance, whether it's a Democratic administration. I feel it's going to be a continuation of the Republican administration after President Trump. And I think that things will always, the State Department should always remain consistent, but at the end of the day, each administration's approach will differ and will vary.
I find that very interesting. Can it be that simple, Major General Sanjay Meston, the fact that these things happen? Because at the end of it, at one time, the biggest enemy of America was none other than Osama. We all know where he was found, on the backyard of Pakistani Army's own backyard. But now you have the army chief who's gone there having luncheons with the US president. Is it so easy to say, oh yes, its times have changed and we'll keep evolving our relationship? Does that matter? How long should India and can India trust America?
No, times have not changed. I do not agree with her statement. Reason being that when I was in Afghanistan and interacting with the International Security Assistance Force, I was there for almost 3 years. Let me tell you, the ISF, led by 4-star generals, I interacted with them, and of course the French and Australians and UK and German, everyone. Everyone admitted that Pakistan is the root cause of all problems. And where was Taliban that time harbored? Where was it being trained? When the Americans, evicted the Taliban, where were they lodged? They were totally in Pakistan being trained, and they were the ones who were targeting Americans, and so many Americans and the International Security Assistance Force lost their lives. And of course, bin Laden, you rightly pointed out, in 2011, the Pakistan army was sheltering him, totally protecting him. So the times have not changed. Reality will continue, and I must state, America should be prepared for another major terrorist attack. Why? I will reason it out. Because the way things are going on between Israel and Hamas, definitely that is going to impact. And obviously all the major planning, everything has always happened in Pakistan. So let's not be surprised. Some major terrorist attack may be planning would already be going on.
You know what they say about snakes in your backyard, they will come back to bite. We'll have to wait and see how this pans out. Unfortunately, Adel Nazarian completely are running out of time. But I appreciate you joining us here on the show, as well as Major General Meston as well, and giving us your perspective on what's going to be the way forward. Is President Trump really spoiling for a war with statements and his actions? We leave you, the viewer, to decide. Without a short break, don't go anywhere.